Motion carries.
11E is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Turn Up Knox to provide violence interruption street outreach programs in the city of Knoxville in an amount not to exceed $450,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Council members, 2 people have signed up to speak against this. Oh, no. Is that? Okay. We have 7 people signed up to speak in favor of this, and 2 people signed up to speak in opposition. We'll start with the 3 people speaking in favor. The first person signed up to speak in favor of this is Cody Mills. Mr. Mills, if you could come to the podium, please start by stating your name and address for the record.
Cody Mills, 5700 Dodge Road, 37912. Before I get started, I would like for everybody in the room that's coming to support Turn Up Knox to take a stand for me for 1 second. Now, as you can see, the community came out to support us because we are the community and they believe in the work that we're doing and the goals that we're trying to accomplish, which is to make a safer Knoxville. And I appreciate everybody for standing. Thank you. So I can start off by saying I'm a man that has made my share of mistakes in my life. Mistakes that led to prison. It led to me being denied jobs, housing, and all from those mistakes that I made. And I'm sorry for being a little nervous. This is kind of new for me. But I spent most of my life outside of that working with youth already. I worked for Lakeshore Mental Health for about 6 years, working with kids. I worked with Reflections Treatment Center, working with kids. And for the past 15 years or plus, I've coached youth football dealing with kids, not knowing and not realizing that I was already doing the work that I'm here to do now. But as the time I was doing that work, I was doing it without structure and without knowledge. But now that I'm a part of Turn Up Knox, they're offering a lot of training. We're networking with so many different organizations, and it's actually giving me the tools that I'm going to need to actually be successful in the work that we do. Let's see. Since being a part of Turn Up Knox, the work has given my life a sort of a purpose. I've always been compelled to work with kids or help kids, and there's plenty of kids that I've dealt with all over my life that's still in contact with me to this day, 20, 25 years later. But I have a clear picture of what my job is by being a part of Turn Up Knox. And the people that I work with, I wouldn't want to do the work with anybody else other than these people. It really has opened doors for me that I always thought was closed. And being a part of, like I said, Turn Up Knox and meeting new people and networking with people and learning from different people that's been doing this work has just took me to the next level of my life. And I want to continue to be a part of that. And I want to thank everyone that's in attendance tonight because we're all working together to make this same thing happen, which is a safer Knoxville. And I thank y'all.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak is Letitia Frierson. Ms. Frierson?
Good evening. My name is Letitia Frierson. 37912 is my zip code. I came into the Turn Up Knox program 6 months ago with my 14-year-old kid. I reached out, looked for all other sources. I was recommended to Turn Up Knox. I got more from them than I did KPD after my kids were missing for 8 days, still nothing from Knox County. I spoke with one of the CEOs. Within hours, my kid was located. He's currently incarcerated, but still through Zoom meetings, meetings, I still get a call wondering what's next, what's going on. So I am one parent of a single parent of 4 youth, and I do find that the program is very helpful. The research is great, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak is Denzel Grant.
Let's go, Denzel! Let's go! GM for Grant.
Good evening. My name is Denzel Grant. Address is Knoxville 37914. I would like to say thank you, not only to the number of city council members who supported this project from day one. LaKenya and her office has been a tremendous help to this program's success, so I definitely want to thank her as well. But more importantly, my staff. I'm emotional. I'm emotional because I'm realizing the amount of passion that it requires to do this work every day. Not only for myself, but the continued support that I get from my staff, from community members. You know, when you're dealing with families who you see hurt every day from losing certain loved ones, you know, that grief and hurt is easily transferable when you do have the type of passion that myself and my staff has. And these are things that we deal with on a daily basis. Again, I want to thank City Council, you know, for helping me kind of realize that even a small amount of help can go to great measure. You know, when you do have the support from local government and the community, you can take these long strides. And, you know, I can say, I can honestly admit, I didn't expect us to be this far in this first year. I just didn't. I didn't expect the amount of progress that we made in the community. I didn't expect it. So again, I want to thank, you know, my staff, the community, you know, day in and day out. You know, I get the opportunity and the privilege to watch them build relationships, you know, provide a different intervention between community members and certain incidents that included violence. You know, we operate with 9 staff, which 6 of those we rotate 4 hours on a 24-hour time frame. I mean, we don't stop working. We've been working 24 hours, 7 days a week since we started this thing. And that's with you guys' support, the community support. Like I said, long days, random hours in the night, you know, spent away from family members. We got a couple staff who got newborns. You know, they're getting up 1, 2 in the morning and responding to crime scenes, de-escalating certain situations, you know, creating and getting in front of rumor control, right? A lot of the times the investigation can be stirred away. And so we try to get there and support those grieving families who are experiencing a traumatic experience. Obviously, we all know in this room, according to TBI reports, crime is down. We can't argue that. Nobody can argue that with me. Numbers don't lie. There's no one program that you can pinpoint that to credit. You know, there's not one program that you could credit this progression to. What I can say is that there's been a number of efforts, not only just with Turn Up Knox. You have Drums Up, Guns Down. You have Safe Haven. You have Love is the Answer. You have YWCA, Helen Ross McNabb, a number of local clergy, right? Youth ministry. All of these things have played a role in some of the progression that you see. Of course, we do know that there's more work to do, but crime is down. More importantly, crime is down involving our youth. A 10-year low. I'm gonna say that again, a 10-year low. You can't stop what God has put in place for us to do. We look forward to the continued support, not only from City Council, local government, local agencies, but also the support from the community. I yield my time.
Thank you. Council members, there are other members of the Turn Up Knox staff and supporters who are available to answer questions should they arise in your discussion. Now we'll move to the people signed up to speak in opposition to this agenda item. First is Rick Roach. Mr. Roach.
Rick Roach, Knoxville. Over a year ago, when the first funding came up, there were questions raised. And I've known Denzel and worked with Denzel, worked under Denzel, learned a lot on those occasions. I don't give that to too many people. That being said, the questions that were raised over a year ago still have not been answered. And looking at some information, budgetary information, we still don't have an idea. I'm glad everyone has spoken to what they do. But Denzel, to be honest, if you know anything about crime statistics, Chief, I don't know if you had the department supply them or whatever, but you can arrange those any way you want. Okay? Now, we had a peak 2 years ago. We had a peak of young black folk being killed, primarily, most of them in East Knoxville, but we had this rash in a concentrated period of time. And we weren't talking about some underlying factors which the police department hasn't shared or won't give clarification on about the cause. Because all the police do is carry out policy. They enforce policy. Turn Up Knox, at the end of the day, can go no further than the policies that the city initiates is going to allow them to go. Y'all figure this one out. Okay? So we've had people and organizations doing multiple grassroots organizations who get pennies of support from the city government and from the county also. Pennies. And yet we're talking about $450,000 for one organization, which is not a 501c3 yet. Okay? And there hasn't been any straight up accounting of monies coming into the organization as of yet. You can access the budget. I've got a copy of it. But when there's some explanation given, and I don't know if you guys have seen it, I would reference you for more talking points to an email that you may have received, every one of you on City Council and others, that someone, I'm not even going to say the person's name, but you got the email. Look at those talking points. They're very valid. They are to the point. And you need to pay attention. Okay? And when those questions are answered, when those issues are addressed, then maybe we can get support. I'm going to be honest too. As much as I like Denzel, we still haven't had that meeting. You promised. We haven't even had that phone call. Okay? You said you wanted something from me. Okay. But that goes along with how this council overall has kind of addressed the situation also. Okay? It's a problem that you guys really don't want to deal with at the end of the day, because let's be honest, you all are in the business of taking things from people and giving them to other people. Okay? And that goes back to that policy statement I made earlier. So just know we know. Okay? And you need to stop it, and we need to quit playing games with these folks.
Next person signed up to speak is Constance Every. Miss Every.
My name is Constance Severy, Knoxville, Tennessee. So since Rick didn't call the elephant, I will. The email was from Reggie Jenkins of Unique Academy. So if we're gonna talk about the voices of the community, let's talk about the voices of the community. And you're right, he did send the email. And you're right, he is a long-standing member of the community who has established a program that has been working with young boys for years is the key word behind it. So I'm gonna read two things that really sticks out in Reggie's email to me, particularly that we've been brought up, like Rick said a year ago, and still asking today. My second concern evolves around the efficiency of Turn Up Knox past programs. I'm curious to learn if there's any available data that sheds light on the outcomes and the impact of these previous initiatives. Specifically, how do they measure the effectiveness of their interventions? In my own experience, which I agree to, I've come to understand that addressing crime and violence within marginalized communities require a holistic approach targeting issues such as poverty, housing inefficiencies, educational skill development, and mental health challenges. Do you know how Turn Up Knox has tackled these multifaceted issues and integrated them into their strategies? Are there any financial records to justify such a large infusion of funds? Furthermore, I'm left wondering why an organization with no prior experience in violence interruption has been earmarked for such a substantial financial grant, especially in comparison to grassroots organizations that have demonstrated effectiveness over the years. Is this a true commitment to curb our city's violence? Well, Reggie, let me go on and answer that question real quick for you. The answer is no. This is nothing more than what it actually really is, that we called it for a year ago because we knew election season was coming up. This is nothing more than coonery for the coons. Let's just call it for what it really is. Black faces that have been paid to come into our community to advocate on behalf of India, especially during this time of the year of the election cycle. Let's keep it real. During the first week of August, 8 bodies showed up. And we still don't even know what half of those issues are. Some have been identified as a murder, while others are still under the investigation process of what happened to those people. Let's not forget the YWCA. A youth brought not one, but 2 guns to the center and shot another youth. Why? We still have not had a direct answer what that happened to. Let's not forget they had one of their own teammates die in the line of duty. Again, what is the plan to keep that from happening ever again? Let's talk about BBOs, where we still don't know if they are violence interrupters, deputies of the police department, or actual snitches for the police department. But the point is that they were working at BBOs that had murder incidents occur at the site of the location. Again, what was the point? More importantly, we've already talked about the funding. We can't even get an honest answer. Are they part of the police department or not? We know by your line items of your budget that actually we can question that. $80,000 for an investigation unit directly to the police department. Okay, so either you are or not working with the police. But more importantly, what was the program? We had a recent meeting where we know now indirectly you admitted we're scrapping whatever we did the first year and we're moving to another strategy because we basically indirectly admitted that whatever we did the first year, it didn't work. Now we got to do something different. And you're bringing in Family 3M to do some data. Family will get some numbers to the situation and really see what's actually happening. But more importantly, as it's already been highlighted, if this was a sincere program, then what are you basing it from? Is it from Philadelphia? Are we using the models from LA? Are we talking about the ones that they do in Miami? Are we using the ones from Arizona? Where are we getting the actual strategies from? Where is the public vetting? Because again, concerts and cookouts and parties are not actual engagements. Where is our mentorship? Why have we not seen 100 black men work with this program to establish some form of direct mentorship in our community? Why have we not had actual town hall meetings like at the Alliance House where DIC could have easily organized that for the community to come in and talk? Hey, Gwen, 6th district representation. Why have you not called a town hall right along with your husband who's a state representative that we could get the funding directly from the state to also talk about how we're going to address this issue? I need to see sincere transparency and authentic effort behind the gun violence because these children are dying. And last but not least, we still got to address the violence of KPD. Did everybody see Western Heights? Did y'all see them girls get slammed not once, not twice, not 3 times, 6 times on concrete ground before there was an actual response in return to a police officer directly assaulting her? So we still got to deal with that part. And more importantly, Miss Bell, we still got to highlight that fact. We knew she left on racism. I just think it's ironic how y'all sat here and lied directly to our faces about it and then found out after the fact that now Paul Orwell wants to make a statement about what really occurred there. So again, Lisa Edwards Anthony Thompson Jr., how are we going to prevent those from ever happening again? I need to see sincere violence interruption. So no, people, do not applaud because you don't even know the real issue here. And like I said before, this is nothing more than coonery for the coons on behalf of India. I yield my time.
Council members, that concludes people signed up to speak against this. Ms. Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. I do believe that the community raises valid questions, and some of those questions were answered in an email this afternoon when I met with Director Middlebrook on Monday and asked for the financial report of last year's activities, and that was shared with us just this afternoon. Although I will say, as a nonprofit director, the limited amount of information on this financial report is, I've never seen it for a grant of $450,000. So I feel uncomfortable with the level of accountability that we're asking for here when it comes to the reporting, and it's for multiple reasons. One reason is because this needs to be a process that informs future policymaking for City Council. Turn Up Knox should not be the final solution to how we address the violence in our community. If we see a lack of housing, employment opportunities, those are issues that we have to address additionally, in addition to the work of violence interruption. But the data that's in the report is very limited, and I'm not able to pull from this data and understand how much of the work does pertain to a housing issue or a mental health issue. The reports need to be much more thorough. My other concern is the amount of funding asked for. We're asking for another $450,000, but in the first round, $90,000 of that went to seed to, I guess, support their efforts helping Turn Up Knox with capacity building or whatever that might be. That's not continuing, and so now that $90,000 would go towards additional staff and additional program expenses. There's not anything in this report that indicates a need to increase the staffing. This is already an organization that goes outside of our normal policies when it comes to how much of our funding do we commit to those overhead costs like personnel versus actual program costs. And that's part of the reason why we have community members who are asking these questions, because we have community groups who are operating on a shoestring budget or working extremely hard, who also feel that they are a part of the violence reduction solution, but are not receiving support from the city. And we have to be fair and equitable in how we make these decisions. And I just have not seen that happen. When this program was initially proposed, it was told to me that, well, so many things were told to me. But one of the purposes was supposed to be that this would be almost like an umbrella organization that would be able to grant funding to some of the smaller groups engaged in violence interruption efforts. And so that's one piece of the financial report that I was interested in, but I'm just not seeing that funding spreading out. And I even see some discrepancies, which is unfortunate. When I spoke with Shore Foundation, they did not recall
receiving any funding, and they're listed in here as receiving it. So I have concerns. I'm going to need more time. I'll come back. Come back to me.
Thank you. Council members, just to give you an overview of what this Turn Up Knox is, you're pretty familiar with it. I'm really pleased with their progress and very grateful for Director Middlebrook's efforts. They are helping reduce the violence in our city, and that is a labor-intensive thing, not so much programs, but being able to get up, go to a crime scene at any time, day or night, and de-escalate, counteract rumors, all those sorts of things, and not to do so as a volunteer, but to do so as a paid and well-trained professional. So I'm really grateful for their work, and I'm going to let Ms. Middlebrook give a little overview before then I'll go to Councilmember McKenzie to address any more questions or conversation.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone who is invested in this work in any particular way, and for the passion that is shown in creating safer communities, and for everyone who has shown up to speak about this issue in one way or another. Seeing that passion really inspires me and shores up why I get up and do this work every day, and so thank you all for that. Just for some clarity, hopefully, I think it's important to note and understand, first and foremost, that violence interruption street outreach is a very specific work. Interruption and is not necessarily the same specific work as overall prevention and or intervention efforts. And while there are definitely aspects of those things that come into play, interruption really works to prevent those immediate incidents of violence, to help de-escalate particular situations, to engage with individuals in the community, to have those real-time interactions that can help prevent incidents of violence from occurring and can prevent conflict from arising and or escalating to the point that it turns to violence. And so it is very different than some of the other programming that we see happening, some of the other really great work that we see happening in our community. It is hyper-specific programming that has a very particular focus, and therefore the way in which that programming is done is going to look very different. As you heard Mr. Grant mention, these are folks who are on call all the time, because violence doesn't just happen between 8 and 5. And so these are folks who have to be on call all the time and need to be able to be responsive. The major part of their work involves that engagement, that interaction. It's not, necessarily doing from day to day, doing specific programming in a building. It's getting out in community, it's engaging with folks, it's attending events, it's building relationships, it's having conversations, it's de-escalating situations, it's comforting families, it's trying to get ahead of rumor control, and that's people power, right? And so that's why we see a great portion of the budget going to the people, because the people is the work. The people is the work. And so that's why that number may seem slightly out of balance from what we see from some of our more traditional nonprofits that are doing direct services and programs. Also, I know that there have been some concerns raised around the length of time for which the program has existed, and this program came out of a response by folks in the community. I'm happy to see Mr. Canty here and the great work that he's doing with Cities United, that they led in a meeting here with our community, and folks who identified themselves as being really interested in building out this work. And so that's where we started, and the community worked together to build out with this program. The city of Knoxville did not develop this program, community developed this program, and that's what we see before us. But I think it's important also that we recognize that this is not a grant. It's a contract for services. And so some of the policies that exist, say, for example, for our community agency grants and things like that, are not applicable in this particular circumstance, because this is a contract for services, so that we do not staff we don't do social services here in the city. We don't staff folks to do this type of work here in the city. We contract with community partners to do this work. And so it's a contract for services, not a grant. And so that's why some of those parameters may look a little bit different. In terms of, as we think about how this organization works within partners with other organizations. In the pilot year, there was a lot of discussion about what this programming could look like, and I thank you all, and I'm grateful to you all for the faith and the leeway to develop this as it has evolved. And so in this initial year, what we have seen is for Turn Up Knox to help sponsor events, to help provide resources to other community organizations and try to help meet some of the needs where they may be lacking. This year, as they look to continue to build out that program, and as we continue to think about having the need for additional staff and how staff is compensated, as I mentioned, they are working 24 hours a day, and it's exhaustive work, and we don't want people to experience burnout. And so making sure that they can function at a high capacity, I think, is very important. There's also some additional cost. As you all know, last year, this program was incubated within SEED, and so when we think about things like insurance, things like rent, they're also adding insurance for their staff, which was not included in last year's budget. Then that absorbs some of the costs that had been going towards SEED that the program is now going to have to absorb. And so they're really working hard and diligently to do the work of street outreach, but that work does not look like a lot of the more traditional work that we see from some of our other programming because it is so people-centered and it is so focused on that direct engagement. So I hope that helps folks kind of understand what the work is.
Thank you, Ms. Middlebrook. Councilmember McKenzie.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, LaKenya, for clarifying some questions that I had earlier as well and sharing those publicly today. I want to say thank you to Turn Up Knox staff for the work that you all have done, because it absolutely has to be a passion for the commitment that you make. We may look at that dollar amount that you call payroll, but that really doesn't mean a lot when you're talking about people, especially those that are on 24-hour shifts and on call. We hear a lot about going out to crime scenes, but also the work that you do. And thank you to Ms. Frierson for coming up and sharing with us how Turn Up Knox is working with your son and your ability, knowing about them, to reach out to them. And we don't hear a lot about that because there are some parents that don't want to share that openly, the work that people are mentoring with their children because their children have made some decisions that, got them into some trouble that could eventually lead them down a path of self-destruction or being able to hurt someone else. And so I do appreciate you for sharing that with us. And I also want to thank all the other nonprofits that are out there in our community. There absolutely are a lot of nonprofits out there that have been out there doing the work for a much longer amount of time. And we can always look for something negative and something to be wrong with each and every nonprofit, but that's not what we're about, and that's not how we build community and we build each other up. It's about looking for the passion and the good, because for every nonprofit that I'm aware of, there are passionate people who are out there doing the work, and that's what it takes. It takes everyone collaboratively working together. There's not just one solution to anything when it comes to violence, when it comes to things that are disruptive, that create violence in our community. But one thing that I do know that does that, especially in our community, are words. A lot of the things that we saw with young people getting killed and murdered were because of words. Because of words. And so when we are here to talk about how we continue to discourage that, and violence interruption is absolutely different work than a lot of the nonprofits that we see out there. We found out that, Turn Up Knox has applied for a 501c3 and will become a nonprofit, and that will be a different situation, a different scenario once that happens. The work that they have done, along with the other nonprofits, has absolutely made a difference. Numbers don't lie, but we know that numbers can change at any given moment. at any given moment. And so this is why it's so important that we continue to uplift and support not just Turn Up Knox, but every nonprofit that is out there that's doing the work. I do want to ask one clarifying question. So Chief Noel, do you have a contract or do you pay Turn Up Knox? Yes or no?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Turn Up Knox. Denzel, if you could come to the podium. I'd like to ask you the same question. Does Turn Up Knox receive any monetary dollars from KPD, or are you guys in any contract that would make you employees of KPD in any capacity?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. However, my assumption would be that there is a working relationship, which it has to be, for you all to even be able to go out to crime scenes, to be able to have access to families, and to be able to talk to people in various capacities. I also know that there have been some instances where people have reached out to you all where there is a potential violent situation where they didn't want to call the police, and you all have responded and gone out there. I would say in that working relationship, if you ever felt like there was a potential for that violence to escalate, that you would do what was the right thing, or if someone was homicidal or suicidal. So again, I just want to reiterate that none of this work is easy. Someone mentioned that a member of your staff was murdered. I know that a member of your staff lost a family member to violence, and for that, my sincere sympathy goes to you all, but the work that you do is dangerous. And so I'm glad to hear that insurance is being included in that, because people are putting their lives on the line every day when you are out there in the streets. Even when you come from the streets and you still live in the streets, the violence is there, and we know that. Bullets don't have eyes. And so with that said, I'm continuing to keep you all in my prayers. I thank you for all that you do. God bless you.
Thank you. Mr. Grant, we're just going to go see if did you have something to answer her question?
Yes,
Yeah.
I just want to take a brief moment to make sure that it's on record and give my staff member here, Rashad Woods, just a brief 60 seconds to explain the importance of the community having an understanding of what Turn Up Knox does and what that working relationship with KPD looks like, if that's okay with City Council.
Council members, everybody okay with that? Okay. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Rashad Woods, 815 Radford Place, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay.
Yes, see, we go out into the community every day in these high-risk areas and deal with these high-risk people. And, we've had to kind of deal with a lot of the things that was, Amelia Parker commented on a Facebook post and said that we make lists of people's names and hand them to the police, give them to Chief Noel, and then, Constance is a constant person with this negative rhetoric, but it makes our job dangerous. We have to go deal with these people every day. So I could be taking my family somewhere, or I could be pulling up at a scene, and somebody could really harm me. That's what makes my job the most dangerous, because at the end of the day, I'm from this community. That's the reason why I'm not harmed. I can pull up almost anywhere. I'm not worried about it, aside from somebody saying that put me in that position.
This is funny to you?
Hey,
This is funny to
hey,
you?
you guys, Mr. Held, let's let Mr. Wood continue. Go ahead.
But that's most of our problems is the false narratives and propaganda that's being spread. Probably out of opposition mostly. It's just really out of opposition, but you don't put somebody's life in danger because you oppose something that they're doing to try to help the community. It really makes no sense.
Hey, audience members, please be quiet. We cannot hear the person who's addressing council. Mr. Woods, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you so much for your work.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Testerman.
Well, actually, point of order, Mayor, my name was mentioned, and I would like to respond.
It's Ms. Testerman's turn. You'll get your turn in a minute. Ms. Testerman?
Thank you. I do have a few questions for Mr. Grant, if you wouldn't mind coming back to the podium.
Good evening, Ms. Tessman. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I first want to commend you and thank you for the work you're doing. So just really some questions. Do you have any update on the status of of your 501c3 and where that is?
Yes, so we've submitted our 501c3 full-length application. We've been told over the course of I want to say about 90 days that it can take anywhere between up to 6 months. And so that's where we're at with our status. We're literally just waiting for it to come back from the federal level.
So you just applied for it 90 days ago?
About March, actually, towards the end of March, we filed our long form. So we're still waiting.
Okay. So I'm curious. So you had your 1-year pilot program, your 1-year pilot. Would love to hear a little bit from you on during that 1 year, and you just said, you didn't dream you would be kind of this far along, but what some of your successes and what some of your failures were, and of that, what would you do differently, and what do you plan to do differently moving forward from what you've learned?
One of the key things we did learn, and in reference to the work, is understanding the importance of being community informed. I know a lot of the times we can go ahead and put our own agendas on what community members need to get out of some of the situations that they're dealing with. And so we made it a priority going in to spend majority of the time engaging with the community, pretty much to kind of hear what they need, what they want Turn Up Knox to be, and modeling our program, with that approach. We have found, as many people know, there's a lot of underlying issues that go into violence. Housing, drug abuse, domestic violence. There's a lot of things. And so for us, and I tell my staff this all the time, is, it's easier to give a person a fish as opposed to teaching them how to fish. And that's the approach we're taking, because we do realize, like I said, there are a lot of barriers that the community are facing. And so we're focused more on fixing the underlying issue as opposed to just throwing a Band-Aid on his or her issue that they're having.
Gotcha. And as well, just kind of, so when you get your 501c3 and, talking about over the last 2 years, and, honestly, it is a lot of money.
Right.
And over 2 years, $900,000. And so I'm just curious to hear from you, what your plans are, once you get that, as far as applying for grants, what kind of research has been done to identify what might align with what you're doing, and just sort of how, your goal for the organization to achieve, to be sustainable.
Right.
And, be self-sustainable.
Right. Sustainability comes with transparency, but I've also realized that transparency takes time. We are currently in the middle of an audit right now as we speak, which we plan to provide to City Council to make public, to give full disclosure on what the finances are. So that will cover the finance piece. From day one, I've been transparent as far as what staff is going to be paid, what our programming is going to look like, administrative fees, taxes. Those things are public knowledge, and I continue to keep it that way to be as transparent as possible for the community and for City Council members who may or may not decide if they want to continue this work in the future or supporting the work in the future.
Okay. My time's running out, but one more question. You mentioned several different organizations earlier when you spoke, and I would love to hear just a little bit more about the collaboration that you have with those agencies that you talked about, and sort of what that might look like going forward.
Partnership was one of the main issues brought up for those who were opposed to this initially. And so I made sure that, us as a program, that we were steadfast with creating different partnerships and collaboration. There's a number of individuals and organizations that we partner with. Austin East High School, senior dues, Austin East boys and girls basketball team sponsorships, Canvas Can Do Miracles, Drums Up, Guns Down, Love Is the Answer, Mills Angels, Mothers of Mission Survivors, the Shore Foundation. I do have proof that we actually did sponsor a movie appearance for their staff and their entire youth program to attend the Black Panther 2 premiere this past November. We provided tickets for all the youth to be able to watch that movie for free, to give our young men and women, majority Black, but of all color, an opportunity to watch a movie that can inspire them. We have the YWMCA, we have Vine Middle School. There's a plethora of organizations and individuals that we partnered with just in year one. And so we want to continue helping and supporting these small groups who aren't necessarily in a position to receive this kind of funding, but making sure that we kind of set a precedent to be an incubator for some of these small programs. So in the future, they know which direction to go to be able to get these funds, to be able to, progress their program.
Thank you for that. Sorry for all the questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryder?
Yeah, Mr. Grant, I don't know that I have that many more questions for you at the moment because Councilwoman Testerman asked my question, or you answered my question specifically because one of the organizations on this list, you were called out for that, but you just answered about the Black Panther premiere.
Yes, ma'am.
When this list is done in the future, could you just make sure to include another column that gives a little more detail about what the donation was for, quantity, and what that just might make it a little easier to understand and appreciate it. And I appreciate you answering that question specifically.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Roberto.
Mr. Grant, I was going to address you too. So thank you for staying up there so long. I just want you to know that what you and your team does takes courage, real courage, to see something that's wrong and to get out there and try to do something to help and lift up. And that is so important and so needed in the broken world that we live in. And so I just want to commend you for doing that, doing something, getting up, working, doing the hard work that Turn Up Knox is doing, building relationships. That's hard.
Right.
Getting, any time of the day or night, going out there and trying to address issues that we need addressed, to rush to crime scenes, to find yourself in a dangerous situation, that takes real courage. And so I just want you to leave here tonight knowing that this council recognizes the courage that you all are displaying and the impact you're having, and you have my support, and I think the support of council tonight, and we wish you well, and we are glad to have you as a partner and working on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. I have multiple things to ask questions about and to comment on. First, I did want to say I'm glad that issue was brought up because I was not going to bring it up tonight. The post made on Facebook, I took it down because the bullying that happened on that post until 2 a.m. in the morning was unsightly, unseemly. It made me nervous, and it made me nervous for you all. Because even though my language may have been not the best language, because it was a discussion about should our street outreach program engage in group violence intervention? 2 different strategies. And a professional organization should be able to have that conversation without bullying the person who asked the question. I work for a violence prevention organization, and our folks who are out in the field actually aren't allowed to be on social media, and that's one reason why it's not a good idea to do so, especially if you cannot refrain from bullying people on social media. I found that very unfortunate. As a nonprofit director of a violence prevention organization, I know that for grant funding and to receive financial support from individuals as well as grant funders, you have to be able to at least report on how your strategies are having an impact. And we're not requiring that of Turn Up Knox. That's what the community's asking for, because that's what other community groups are being forced to do for very little money. We're asked to move the $90,000 from seed that previously went to seed to other areas of work, including expanding staff. And just to give you all an idea of why that seems unreasonable to me, is we started the co-responder program with $95,000. That's not a small amount of money. To not have the detailed report of how the money has been used and will be used, this isn't personal. I have nothing personal against you all. I don't know you all. I don't know you all. So I have nothing against you all. But to raise a budget $90,000 without any accountability for that is difficult for me, because we have other staff, we have other programs that we need to not only support but help get off of their feet. And $90,000 would go a long way. I would be much more comfortable if this was for 300.
Audience members, please let a council member speak.
Yeah, because I can't hear you. But I'll stay around so you can talk to me, but I can't hear you. 360,000 would still be a serious amount of money and would allow you all to continue doing exactly what you're doing while fundraising for the additional funding needed. We have in here that 100,000 will be raised, but no idea of, no research, no indication of where that funding will come from, or whether any steps have been taken to identify where that funding would come from. I would expect Turn Up Knox to have engaged in some individual fundraising by now, with the popularity of the program and the support that I see from board members and others. So I just, for our own due diligence, I'm quite amazed that we don't have more information to support an increase in funding for the program. Also, finally, there's no mention in these materials of a working relationship with KPD. Transparency is what you all have to commit to in this work. I have to commit to it in my peace organization. Folks want to know exactly how we are carrying out our work. It's important. Just like we have questions with the co-responder model, we want to make sure that this is truly a street outreach program that is helping interrupt violence and prevent folks from having to have criminal justice system respond.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. That's your 5 minutes. Yeah. Councilmember Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to just a couple brief comments. I do think there's an opportunity. You have a huge opportunity for the Turn Up Knox folks. You have a huge opportunity to continue doing the good work you've been doing. You have an opportunity to quantify that a little better. I think I would love to see reporting as well down the road. You've got 2 years to kind of do that. You've been focused on saving kids' lives, so I get that that's not necessarily the top. But it's important, so I would ask that you hone in on that. I also agree with some of the comments of my colleagues that, pursue grant funding wherever you can. All that to say, I remember very specifically some meetings in this room about 2 years ago where there were a lot of folks very passionate, and rightly so, demanding this body and everybody involved in any leadership role in the community do something. Because we all remember the kids that were lost on a reoccurring basis. I'll never forget that season. And so that reporting's important from an oversight standpoint, but at a human level, this is a small price to pay to not go back there 2 years ago. What is the value of some of the kids that are sitting here tonight? What is their value? What's their value, right? Let's not mess around with the difference between 300,000 and 400,000. Or that doesn't mean we can't overlook specific goals that I think that you all should. Thank you. Yes, you all are doing the work that we ask you to do, and with responsibility comes empowerment. We empowered you before, and we'll continue to empower you now. Please continue to do the good work. I don't want to go back to 2 years ago and have those meetings and have the weeping and the parents before us that we did, because it's inconvenient, because it's brutal on the community. And so please keep it up. This is us saying you're empowered to continue, fine-tune your craft, get better at it every day. I'm grateful for the change, the 10-year low that we've seen. Those numbers can't be promised forever, but they are attributable to you guys. So thank you. Keep up the good work. Improve where you can. Thank you.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes, I don't want to go back 2 years ago either, because when we were back 2 years ago, people in my community were calling me out to do something about this. And I had long discussions on people's front porches where people, just regular folks up and down the street, could come and talk to me. And what they were telling me is what we were doing was not enough, and it wasn't the right thing to do. And what has made me a strong supporter of this particular group is that it's consistent with what people were telling me on those front porches that we need to be doing. This is a different approach, and it has a network that's not so obvious. You couldn't put it on a spreadsheet. But part of the work they do is reaching out into the community and having a partnership with regular folks in the community that know the streets and they know what's going on and they know the people out there. And that's not easy to quantify. So I guess to underline the point that I really want to make is that this is consistent. This approach that our group here today is making is consistent with what I had been hearing. And so I want to continue to support it, and it's showing some benefits, and let's give it a chance. And it's a new program, and it's a little bit different, but from what I'm hearing, this is the approach that needs to be taken, and it's not being served by some of our nonprofits who are actually doing excellent work, but we're doing a little bit something different here. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas. Ms. Parker, your light is on. Go ahead.
I just want to emphasize that's the reason why we need the data and the real reports, because we don't want a repeat of the high level of violence that we've experienced as a city, but we have to understand what is contributing to lowering that violence. How much is street outreach a part of the solution? How much are these other strategies that community groups are leading a part of the solution? Perhaps we need to support, Turn Up Knox at this level, and we need to support the other folks at this level to ensure that we continue to see a reduction in the violence. That's not the conversations that we're having. We're having these unfortunate, really political and quite immature conversations about who do you like and who do you not like. I'm looking at data. That's all I'm looking at. And what I see in front of us is very insufficient, shockingly insufficient. And let me say it this way. I want the good work that you all are doing to show up on my paper, right? Even the testimony that was shared with us tonight is something that we could have had in our report so that we can hear how someone, it's an example. That's something that you can do when you write a report. Just put some stories behind these numbers. Help policymakers understand what's going on in this community so that we can respond appropriately. if we need to invest in housing in certain areas, if we need more mental health supports, if we need, whatever it is, it's from your work and these reports that we learn what's going on. I'm not going to be able to support this tonight. I would love for us to postpone it, give time for the report to be beefed up, have some details put in there, get some details clarified in this financial report. But I can tell from the conversation tonight that that's not where we're at as a city. But that's not where we're at as a city. We haven't really committed to a process where we, as policymakers, are taking responsibility for what we're investing in and what the outcomes are. What we're doing is saying, thank you all for what you're doing. If we see the numbers go up, guess who we're blaming? Y'all. And that's not how leadership works. We should have a clear understanding of what we're investing in and what we're doing as a city to prevent violence. And I don't believe we're doing our due diligence to do that. That doesn't mean I don't appreciate you all. That doesn't mean I don't appreciate every community member who steps up to do something positive in their community. I wish we could give every community group $450,000. It would be a different city if we were able to do that. But we are limited. And so we have to be smart in how we use our funds. And it has pained me over this last year to see the grants going to other organizations reduced. We're not seeing the level of support for other community organizations that we've seen in previous years even. That's my concern. What will be the consequence of that? What will be the consequence of that? Even our own expert that we've decided to follow, Thomas Apt, says that for every healthy community organization you have engaged in this work, that represents 1% reduction in violence in the community. So if we start to see other community groups fold because they can't find funding and they can't find support, and I'll tell you, when it comes to community safety, public safety issues, there are not many foundations who fund it. My organization, we raise the majority of our money from individuals. But other organizations, especially based in a city, look to their city leaders for funding and support for public safety initiatives because there just isn't that much money in other places. So we have to be smart. We have to spread it around, and we have to make sure we still haven't gone through the data to make sure that we are addressing this exactly how we need to. Do we need to go citywide? Do we need to, have a larger area that we're covering when we think about street outreach? So, lots of questions.
Ms. Fugit.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say, I too would like more data. Everybody would. You're a startup organization. It takes a little while to get all those policies and procedures in place. I too run a nonprofit. I understand about the scrutiny of people who invest in you. I have every confidence that you will get there with your reporting and your data. There are a lot of people who support the work that you do, and I'm sure will be willing to help you make that happen. So I just would say, while I too would like more, I'm an old financial person, but a startup is a startup. And I suspect you spent the majority of your time doing the work. I do think it is probably helpful to now expand some board help or whatever that can help you do some of those other things as you move forward to continue to seek funding, not only from the city, but foundations and others, and wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Council members and members and supporters of Turn Up Knox, I just want to say that Turn Up Knox is a startup organization. They've done incredible work in a short amount of time. They've done work that we as a city, as city council, and me as mayor have asked them to do. to build their capacity to do. They're doing it well. They're getting better every day. And they have my confidence and support to continue saving lives in this city. Seeing no further questions or comments, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?